Hello and welcome to Decoding Life, a podcast aimed to help teens and students navigate their ways through basically the maze of life, where we have a lot of decisions to make that are very hard and have a huge impact on our lives. My name is Aishani, I'm the host of the podcast, and today we have the amazing Miss Teejay. And she's the school librarian, personal project coordinator, a physics teacher, and we're going to be talking to her about personal project, which is a huge concern for so many grade 10 students, including myself, because it's something completely different from what we've done for the past few years in NYP, and it's kind of hard to grasp your head around something that's so big that you take 6 months to complete it, and you have like a supervisor, and it's very complicated. So hello, Ms. Teejay.
Hello, Shani. Yes, I've been at the school for 11 years and I actually took on the role of personal project coordinator because I felt that it was perhaps being done more as a tick box since COVID. It kind of lost some of its passion, and it's so important to me. I actually really love the personal project. I think it is kind of like a coming of age for students. It's the point where they realise why they've been learning all these ATL skills and developing the ATL skills of the NYP program, which is of course what sets the NYP apart from other curriculums. And they put those ATL skills together and learn something that they think is important to learn. Something where they think that school has failed them. And by using those ATL skills, they can suddenly realise that, hang on, I don't really need the teachers anymore. I can do this all by myself. I can take a big project, a big learning project, and learn it independently. And of course this is a huge step then going on to being successful as independent learners in the diploma and also out in life. A lot of the skills that we use in the personal project are skills which I honestly, with my hand on my heart, use every single day in my work.
There's really something that is a step towards independence, which is why you said it's a coming of age type of thing. I think that's really important because now a lot of, especially with the media coverage, a lot of people have been bringing awareness about how some schools, because it's not all schools are the IB, some schools kind of miss out on teaching certain concepts that they wish they would have learned at this age before it's something that they have to learn and it's time sensitive and all that. And also being able to learn something you're really passionate about and learn to break it down, that's another thing that's really hard, especially at this age. I mean, I'm struggling with that. I think a lot of people really feel like, including me, we feel like personal projects kind of going 100 miles per hour. It's just going so fast. We have all these reports to do, all this learning to do, all this stuff to do, and it's all time stamped. And on top of that, we have to write a lot about it. So, do you have any
I find that the processes involved in the personal project are as important as the project itself. And I think that's because the pool of information in the world at the moment is so huge, you cannot possibly know it all.
Yeah.
There's no point trying to do it like the old days when we used to say, go away and read that textbook and then you'll be successful, because there is so much information out there. So we need to make sure that students are equipped so that whatever field they end up turning into, they are able to skill themselves up to match what they need to know. Those processes that we go through are helping the student build strategies that they can deploy whenever they might need to take the next twist or turn in their learning. So when we talk about things like making an action plan, how are you going to make sure that you learn this in time to get it done so that you are in a position to be where you need to be? How are you going to make sure that what you're doing, that project that you're working on, is successful? What are the outcomes that you're expecting at the start? And what do you need to action and deploy in those particular outcomes to ensure that you're going to be successful in your learning adventure? I think that those strategies are not just, I think that they're strategies that students need to build and develop, but I think that fundamentally as they go on through the diploma program and then on out into the real world, they will realise that, hang on a minute, I need to write an action plan. Oh, hang on a minute, before I start, I should just quickly put my success criteria down or break this project down into smaller chunks and make sure that I'm focusing on every single part. And as I say, with my hand on my heart, with every project that I do in my workplace, I will have a success criteria. And I will have an idea in my head as to how it's going to come out. I'll even have different levels of success in my head ready. But my dream goal, which will never be achieved because I'll run out of time, I'll have my oh, well, that will be really good if it works out like that. That's where it usually ends up. But I'll also have my ditch out. If it doesn't come out, it's still going to be acceptable and it's still going to work if I have to go to my ditch out plan. And I think that as we go through our learning adventures and we go into the real world and we're doing our own learning and we're in charge of big projects for other people, it's really important to have those skills in place so that we can follow those same processes. And it's those processes that are honing our skills and putting our skills into place, which we are learning and developing through the personal project experience.
So I think it's not just about learning that specific concept, it's about learning obviously that concept that will help you later on, but also developing skills that you can reuse for other projects.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You also touched on strategies. What are some important strategies in your opinion that students should kind of use in personal project to become successful in it?
Okay, I think that probably the thing that I see where students perhaps struggle the most is where they try and balance writing the report with actually learning the learning thing. And I see too often, particularly successful students, trying to spend too much time writing the report and not enough time doing the learning. And I think it needs to be recognized that the most important thing is the learning objective. What you are setting out to learn and what you are going to create to demonstrate that you learned what you said you were going to learn, your product. And I think that if a student diligently goes about learning what they said that they were going to learn, and they research, and they find out what they need to do, and then they go away and they make something that demonstrates what they said they were going to learn, so long as they collect evidence along the way that shows their learning process, writing the report and scoring a high grade is very easy. I find it difficult sometimes when students try and do it the other way. When they spend too much time trying to write a report, a reflection report, before they have anything to reflect on. And that is because they're spending too much time doing the writing report thing and not enough time doing the learning thing. So my key strategy for success is to make sure that you prioritize learning the thing that you said was important to you and you want to learn, and making sure that you're getting in a good timely manner organized to create the thing that you said you wanted to create to show everybody you learned what you said you were going to learn.
I mean, I'm guilty of this myself. I worry a lot about the grades and I sometimes compromise on the actual learning experience, because in my mind how it works, and I think this is the same for other students who do the same thing, is that this is being moderated by the IB. It's being graded by teachers, you don't know who's grading you, and then someone else outside of the school is going to moderate that grade. So it's very serious and it goes on the transcript, you will talk about it in applications. So that's why it's so important for us to prioritize like the grades, and for me like that's the most important thing, is if I don't get that out of the way, if I don't get the grade I want, then I'm kind of gonna regret it. And I think when the grade comes in our head, like it's learning is secondary after that point. I don't think it's only in personal project. I see this in other subjects, and I'm also guilty of this in other subjects, where the grade might be important for us to get somewhere, so we kind of compromise on the learning and the entire point of that project.
I think you just succinctly demonstrated what perhaps is different between your generation and mine. And that is, for your generation, and I hope you don't mind me saying this in a rather condescending way, that sometimes you prioritize the grade over the learning experience. You value a number more than you value being able to use and learn information. And I think that that's something that over time has changed. I'm quite old, okay? Yeah. But I think it's something that students perhaps sometimes need to stop and reflect on. What is more important here? Is it more important that I've gone up by maybe 1 point or down by 1 point on what might be my NYP certificate? Or is it more important that I've learned a new skill that I will be able to talk about when I go to university interviews, when I be able to go for job interviews, or maybe even help me in my future career? Which one of those things is actually of more value?
I mean, now that you put it that way, I feel like it is more important for the learning experience, because the way you put the grade as just a number on a report, it now seems less important. I think that's something that probably should be recognized by a lot of students, because most of the time when I ask about like personal project and like what you want to learn about it, and we did ask a couple of people about what they want to hear in this podcast, the number one response was how to get a good grade on, because that's kind of what they value the most.
I had a student, and I don't think he would mind me talking about this, who actually chose that he wanted to learn German because he wanted to do an engineering course in a university in German, and being able to speak German was one of the requirements of getting onto that course. And he wasn't going to be able to learn German as his personal project. Obviously, that's a massive goal. But he did set about saying, I want to start learning German, and I want to learn it to a particular stage, because then I can prove to myself I can learn this by myself. And then once I've started the process, hopefully then I will be able to continue it. He did actually do that for his personal project, and he did actually continue all the way through so that he actually managed to get to the level that he needed to, and he can now apply to that university and now be successful in engineering in the future, going to the university of his dreams. Now, I think that what is important here is to recognise in 5-10 years' time, is anybody going to remember what he got on his personal project as a grade?
Probably not.
But is the fact that he is now going to do the engineering course that he dreamed to do because he made a good choice in learning, and he actually sat down to learn what he said he was going to do, going to be fundamentally important and remembered in 10 years? Absolutely. So spending time to choose something which has a value to you, that you can actually actively use in the future, is really an important part of the process.
So I know that we're already on this learning journey, it's kind of late to change our learning goals, but for people who have yet to do the personal project, or if I want to learn something later in life, that's just like my own personal learning goal. How do I pick what is most important to me to learn? Because I know when I was trying to find something for a personal project, I had like this list of things that I thought were important for me to learn.
You see a lot of students taking time. Perhaps they have a grandma who's got some sort of disorder or some illness, and they learn about that and learn about strategies and ways that they can help to make her feel more comfortable. I find that's got amazing values. The value doesn't need to be to the student, it can be to other people as well. So whether or not it can be a benefit, I think would be my next filter. And then the third filter, of course, is scope. Yeah? Can I actually come out with something tangible? Can I actually get to the next level, or to a level that is going to be beneficial in the time that's allotted without actually swamping myself?
I think that's a great strategy of like 3 different filter stages where you filter out all these ideas, and most likely you'll probably end up with 1 or 2 at the end, maybe more, but very few at the end, from which it's kind of easy to pick. Or at least easier because you don't have as many choices, you don't have as many things to think about. And it's something that you can apply to not just like something like personal project, but literally any time you feel like you have some time allotted that you can learn something, or you feel like you kind of like take a break from work. And sometimes some people do go back to school, sometimes some people who are in their careers do go back to learn something and to pick what to learn in the time that they have. Because I think time is now a very, very, very sensitive thing, because previously, I can't really speak with the past generation, but what I see is like, previously it was a lot easier to go through teenage years. Probably that's not the best way to word it, but at least most people weren't deciding what their career is going to be, what university they're going to have to go to at like 15. That is the case now, and I see like a regression of the age at which certain milestones happen, and the age at which certain people are expected to do things. They're expected to graduate from university, start doing a job, like maybe not the job earlier because it's unavailable, but at least making really life-changing decisions has been really pushed back, and like it's being done earlier, which is why this whole podcast is there, because it's really hard to make the right decisions, because at 15, I don't know how the rest of my life is going to turn out. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I still have to make those decisions. And I don't want to make something I regret later on.
I think that one of the important questions that you bring up on what you're just telling me is, who is driving that stress? I do feel that is true. The stress does seem to be coming down into the childhood ages as to making choices where people are forced to think that this is going to define my life. I will never be able to do anything else, right down into their childhood. And personally, for me, I think that's a huge sadness, because I think children should be children. And I think one of the questions is, what is driving those expectations? Are those expectations being driven by your own self? Because I think the minute that you realise that you are in charge of your own learning journey and you are able to learn whatever you want to because you have a good basis of skills and you have a good educational foundation, then I think that you can empower yourself to not be so stressed about it. If it doesn't work out what you've chosen, you'll go and relearn and change your direction.
So that idea that like you can still go back and learn something, you can still go back and change that path. I think a lot of people, the reason why, like I think most people know this, I know this, but I still worry about what decisions I'm going to make and the decisions I have to make right now, because I know that if I end up just choosing something I feel like now, regretting it later on, like when I'm in my 20s and having to go back and spend a couple of years learning something else and changing my direction, is that I feel like I've wasted those years learning something and pursuing something I regret, like after I've done it and after I'm actually there.
My personal philosophy is there is never time or money wasted in learning, okay? And in my family, this is a rule that we always adhere to. We will spend any money on travel and seeing the world, or any money on learning experiences, because learning experiences are what builds your character. In my lifetime, I've done a number of jobs. I spent almost a decade as an executive manager in a hotel industry. I certainly didn't train for that. I studied physics, and my degree is in physics and medical physics. So changing course and becoming a hotel manager gave me a completely new set of skills. It gave me the skills to be able to manage people, to create reports, and to be able to kind of create financial reports to give back to other people. So I think that those skills are skills which I can now use in a different way. But I don't regret the fact that I loved working in the hotel industry. I have to say I really absolutely enjoyed it. But did I at any point think, oh, I wish I had gone and studied something hotel related rather than physics? No, I think that I just enjoyed the fact that I could take aspects of what I'd learned on my physics course, because writing a report and making a hypothesis and all those science skills actually come very fundamentally into everyday life. And I think when you can make those transfers and those connections between the different subjects, which is what we heavily emphasize in the International Baccalaureate, is what makes for a successful holistic person.
So it's about like connections and transferring those skills. And I think we did touch on ATL skills at the beginning of this recording. So I think most people know that ATL skills are like this list of different skills: research skills, communication, media literacy, like all these different things. But why are they so important? Why are we learning these and expected to connect every task that we do to an ATL skill?
The ATL skills is the things that you as a student need to demonstrate that you can do in order to be successful. Now we group them obviously by category, but fundamentally the importance is that you are building a toolkit of things that you can do. So when you have that toolkit, you can unpack it into any subject, and you can transfer those skills into any subject or any place or any position you might find yourself. So learning those ATL skills is not like learning content, where content either is there or it isn't there. It is right, it is wrong. It's this or it's that. The ATL skills, doing things like learning how to research, learning how to manage your time, learning how to take notes effectively so you can learn from them. All of these other skills that you can recognize and you can use will help you to be successful no matter what the content is.
So it's more of those transfer skills that you can use in different areas when you're learning, and even when you're like later on in life. So they are quite important. I think they're often overlooked. In fact, I also overlook them, because to me it's like, okay, I just need to tag these ATL skills in my process journal or my success criteria or my action plan, and as long as they're there, it's fine, I can leave it. But I think they're actually more important than that. So do you think, so we need to focus on the learning outcome and also those skills that we learn?
Absolutely. I think that probably ATL skills are more important than anything else in the IB program.
I think compared to how important they are, they're probably the most overlooked. And I think that's something that, I mean, we're bringing awareness because of these reasons. This is why we have the podcast, because it's to help people make these decisions and find out what they really want to do, but also to bring awareness about certain things that otherwise are overlooked.
I'm not entirely sure they are overlooked because as a teacher, as an educator and teaching in this school, I recognise that our lessons are very driven by you using your ATL skills, and perhaps maybe sometimes they're not so apparent to the students, or maybe enhanced enough so you actually realise that you're using them as much as you are. But if you think about some of the things that you do in school, and because I'm a librarian, I'm going to refer to referencing, for example. Like, for example, you will know as a student in our school, we're not expecting you just to take information, we're expecting you to make a reference in the format of MLA, in-text citations, to show where your information is coming from within the body of your work. There's many students who get to university who are coming from other curriculums who actually have no idea how to do that process, and in actual fact are learning it in the first months of their university course. Okay, but that is something that comes with the diploma program. But maybe perhaps you don't inherently maybe it's not so apparent to students that that is actually us going through one of the research skills, and you can actually accurately give credit for information that you're using. It's one of the research skills, information literacy. So it could possibly be that you're doing it, you're just not perhaps as focused and noticed on it as much as we think.
So we just had a quick break because of technical issues, but one of the things we spoke about off camera is about Bob, and basically Bob is someone who you're going to have to work with sometime in the future, because we were talking about ATL skills and how we're still using them in classes today. And one of the things that I kind of was confused about was, like, I get how research skills and communication skills could potentially be used, but social skills, because I'm still going on, I'm interacting with people, so how am I learning social skills? And we touched on Bob, who is someone I'm going to have to work with in the future, who just does not do the work. So can you please go over, like, what was about?
I feel like you were confused about why there was such a drive to learn ATL skills, and particularly things like collaboration skills. Why do I need to know how to collaborate? I feel like I collaborate just fine. But collaboration skills is learning how to collaborate in different ways. So when your teacher is setting you in groups, perhaps where you don't want to work with somebody, you're not choosing who you want to work with, and making you work with perhaps somebody who's a little bit more difficult and you wouldn't choose. Let's call him Bob, right? Bob is a little bit of a difficult character, he's a little bit lazy, and you're really highly functioning, you want to get it done to the best standard. And this would not be your pairing choice, but unfortunately in real life, when you go out into a job, you're going to have to work with a Bob at some point, and you're going to need to know how to manage Bob. Now, when you're going through these processes in school and you're building your collaborative skills, if we're using this particular example, then the first time you work with Bob, you're probably going to do all the work and Bob's going to do nothing. You're going to take it. Okay? The second time you work with Bob, you're going to be upset because you've had this situation before and it meant you had to do the double work. So this time you'll probably manage Bob a little bit better. You'll say, Bob, do this, I'm going to do that, so that it breaks the workload and Bob has a definitive task. But the third time that you do it, and you're practicing building these collaborative skills, you start to notice things. You start to notice, oh, if Bob's engaged, or he feels like he's worthy, then he feels like he's more likely to work for me. So then you'll start to build those skills, so now you'll manage the situation with Bob much better. You'll ask Bob his opinion, and ask him what he thinks he can contribute to the project. And then he will do the bit that he wants to do, and he will work much more successfully with you as a pair. But it's going through those processes and having those practices of building those ATL skills that actually help you to successfully deploy them in future situations.
I think that's really important. And have you used skills like this when you were, like, in your career, basically?
When I was in the hotel industry, I think it's really important because you were talking about, I've got to get the best grade, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. But when I was interviewing people to be my personal assistant, and I was working in one of the top hotels in the world, I was actually not even really interested in what they had written down on paper for what about them. When they would come in, the first way I was testing them is I would say, I'm sorry if something really, really urgent has come up. Can you just take this piece of paper, please? Can you take it to front desk and bring it back to me? It's really urgent. And I would just see how quickly they can, without asking me, oh, sorry, where is front desk again? I don't want that. I'm supposed to be doing something urgent, okay? I want them to use their critical thinking skills, and I want them to move and get the job done. And I want to see if I have a person who has the skill set to actually be able to assist me in any situation, not just for me to tell them what to do and them to be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like imagining what would it be like for the person you're interviewing. You come in for an interview, you expect to talk about your qualifications, your background, all these different things. Instead, what you do is you're timed on how fast you can get a paper to the front desk.
I know it sounds a little bit harsh, but honestly, the best people in life will be able to manage situations like that. And when you go out into real life, you want people who can manage situations and transfer their skills that they have learned over time to meet the needs to assist your company, rather than just be what I would consider to be somebody who could be replaced easily by Siri.
That's another thing. Now, a lot of people are concerned about AI being replaced by technology. That's one thing you can't replace. The skills that you have as we have as humans to be able to critically think and come up with innovative solutions on the spot.
Absolutely. So I think that it will be a while before we get a good AI tool to replace the ATL skills.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Aishani.
That was amazing, honestly. I feel like this is probably one of the most insightful things into the IB program, insightful episodes we've had into the IB program itself. And honestly, I can't wait. Like, if anyone wants a second episode of this, if you have any questions about personal project or ATL skills or anything we've spoke about in the podcast, or anything you'd like to know from Ms. Teejay, please let me know. And so yeah, anything you'd like to say?
Oh, thank you very much. I don't feel perhaps we focus quite as much on the personal project as we might have done, but I hope that that brought some interesting insights to the personal project to people. And if anybody wants to do a follow-up on how to be successful in the personal project report, perhaps we could do that later.
Yeah.
Take care.
You should.